Seriously, who do you hang out with?
The radical left, the Marxists, the anarchists, the agitators, the looters, and people who, in many instances, have absolutely no clue what they are doing.
As humans, we're obsessed with building monuments, civilizations, entire empires, yet nothing escapes the inevitable truth of this universe. Everything falls. An asteroid ended the reign of the dinosaurs 66 million years ago. Babylon fell, as did Carthage. Tenochtitlan crumbled, the USSR dissolved, even Berlin's wall came down. Greater empires have fallen, and so will this one. Athens mocked Thales of Miletus for falling into holes while staring at the stars. But if we only keep our heads down, wouldn't we miss the next asteroid destined to erase us? Welcome to Fallen Cities. Let's explore the ruins together.
So, we're back, man. We're back into the business.
Fuck yeah. Unbelievable.
So this, let's say, rebrand of a previous podcast. This
is our amateurish
podcast. Now we have, as you see, lights, good microphones, like a computer, like we have people. Now we have people. So, man, why we changed the name to Fallen Cities?
Yeah, I mean, it was their idea, so.
It was the idea. I wanted to check if you understood my idea behind it.
But yeah, it was a beautiful metaphor of yours, as usual. I think we're living in an era where a lot of civilization clashes and domination.
It feels that things are falling, you know.
And things are falling. Yeah, you could feel that the status quo is trembling, that the empire is falling. And also I think the background plays
absolutely, but I also think it's more simple than that. It has to do with our friendship, you know, like you were the first person I met like in Germany when I moved here. You were reading like a French book like Stendhal. Now you live in Stendhal.
Don't disclose private stuff.
No, anyway, you were the first person that I met. You told me, I'm from Tunisia. I did know where Tunisia was, like a little bit of stuff. You were like, oh shit, okay. Surprisingly, yeah. But the thing that we have in common is that we come kind of from countries or cities with a big history and a lot of history of colonization. No, like I come from Mexico City. It was built on the ruins of Tenochtitlan. Even now, when you go to Mexico City, to the center, you see like the pyramids of Tenochtitlan or what's left from there. And when you grow up, you have like this feeling like there was like this great civilization that fell, and it fell. Thanks to colonialism, and even though
thanks to
because of and the story, even after the independence, it's a never-ending story, no? Like colonization, it's in some way not over, but of course I also know it's part of my narrative. That is the narrative that have created Mexico identities nowadays. You know, it's what you hear on school, and it also helps. So it's also let's deconstruct that. But those things, yeah.
I definitely agree, but I also would add another layer in the sense that when you live and when you travel to the important places, in the sense that the places where the power is exerted and is practiced, US, Europe, whatever it is, now China, Japan, like, and you see that foolishness and that like. I mean, it's chauvinism in its core, but it's also that idea that we are great and that we will be great forever, without taking into consideration that everyone was great sometime, like
and all empires fall.
And all empires falls. And I think I remember when we were in Tunisia traveling, and we went to, if you remember, we went to this
because he's from Tunisia, by the way.
If that's not clear.
Yeah.
To the amphitheater in El Jam. I remember,
I
remember. Like it's one of the best preserved amphitheaters, and the city around it is a really non-important, very small city in Tunisia now. And you say Jem, it's like there is only the souk and that's it. You know, like in terms of relevance, even in the country itself. But that amphitheater was immense, and you know that the Romans in the time of their empire, they built amphitheaters in the centers or in the cities of where power is, and we were like looking at, like we're on the top and we're looking at it, and you said like great forgotten cities. So I think that was the start of it, but it ended up in a podcast.
It ended up in a
how mundane is that?
Podcast. Hopefully we will talk about like a fall that is this book. But first of all, we're really happy to have our first guest. So this is Dash. Do you want to present yourself?
So happy to be here. So my name is Dash. And I've met you guys in a writing club that we're in together.
Yes, absolutely.
So, and I was very honored to be invited here today.
Yeah, we're super excited.
We're super excited that you are here. And let me explain you like how it goes. What is the idea of the podcast? If it's okay for you, yeah.
Yes.
So normally we have like a main topic, and this is the book that we all read, and we will comment. We will go through it later. But normally, before we start with a main course, so to speaking, we have like an appetizer, you know. And today's appetizers, one is environmentalism. I know that you are really
very passionate
absolutely.
About
so I think
you're not gonna like it.
I mean, you can teach us actually.
I'm up for a fight.
Exactly, and of course, Hussein. Well, we all do it together, and another one is the Powell Memorandum. No.
Yeah, a very angry section. It basically with so his environmentalism in an angry way. Mine is more supporting conspiracies and saying that the world is controlled and all this.
Oh, wow.
it's the angry part of the podcast, and then we chill a little bit.
I'm up to agree and disagree and have a really fun conversation.
I have a fun conversation. That's important. Okay. So, yes, I want to talk first. I don't know why, like in the last 2 weeks, I've been like more involved in the topic of environmentalism. Especially because how it is treated, no? Like you have, especially here in Germany, like they have their beautiful cans, different colors, everyone like separates the garbage, but they have like, it's like, congrats, no, perfect that people do that, like I'm super glad, but they have like, or I have perceived this idea of like, we are doing the good, and the others don't know how to recycle or use their waste, and the others are, kind of responsible of the climate crisis,
or irresponsible,
or I'm responsible, and we're going to talk about it like the system. But it's like when you talk with somebody, it's like, no, I'm vegan, I don't eat meat, I respect that. If it's for like conscious of animals, blah blah, I respect that. While no, I do it because I want to reduce carbon emissions while they are eating an avocado toast. No, I was like, okay, you know, it's a little bit like
the paradoxal.
Exactly, like
hugely.
You know where your fucking avocado toast comes from, like you know, like just to.
And the maracuya in general.
And the maracuya, exactly, and like my tropical fruit, like in.
And fucking monoculture.
Exactly. And just going back like to the aguacate. This is for me really important because Mexico is the biggest producer of avocado. Now everyone knows that, of course, guacamole, But we produce 32% of the avocado in the world, and one would say like, okay, that's a good opportunity of selling. Actually, it's destroying the fucking country, like completely destroying the country, especially places like Michoacan, where they have changed all the practices of agriculture just to do avocado because of how much is requested in the world. one avocado needs, like 1 kilogram of avocado needs 1,700 liters of water, which is insane. Like it's more than what a cow needs, you know? And now like the narcos, like the cartels are taking like these spaces, and violence is like growing, and it's a big problem.
And I think themselves also are turning into avocado producers.
Yeah, exactly. Like like narcos in Michoacan, their first business is avocados. Second is narco trafficking, drugs. Absolutely. And
brings more money than drugs.
It's more money than drugs. It's really insane.
I mean, if you think of an avocado in Europe that costs €2, like in Mexico, literally, it's like
it's for free.
Like it's for free. Like it's really profitable business outside of the water shit that you already Mexicans are suffering from.
Absolutely.
Like heavily.
I will never look at avocados.
No.
I will look at them like I will see cocaine.
It's kind of, and that's where I want to go exactly. That is nice that you mentioned, because many people is like, yeah, well, Mexico, corrupt country, like you're not growing it sustainable, like as if they think this is a problem from Mexico, when it's a problem like from the big corporations, like the big policies, like the big countries.
United Fruits.
So we're going to talk about Chiquita. You know Chiquita?
I do not know Chiquita, but I know United Fruits.
Yeah.
You know United.
It is a page.
It's like kind of like everyone agrees that there's some dark history here.
Very much so.
Very. So Chiquita is the rebranding of the United Fruit Company. And Chiquita is the biggest exporter of banana in the world. If you go now to Reve, to Neto, you can buy Chiquita banana. That's the name. Really? Okay, and you're like, I want for breakfast a banana. I will...
This is one.
Chiquita. Wow, so friendly.
Exactly. It's saucy, like Latinas, you know?
Oh, that's true. Does she have like stockings? Extremely short skirt. Guys, look up the logo. And
this banana that you eat in the morning, they lost just in June a lawsuit for $40 million because they were found guilty of funding the guerrilla groups in Colombia from 1997 to 2004. This means they were funding guerrilla right-wing groups to destabilize the region to be able to continue exporting and destroying practically like Colombian rainforest. So when you think like, oh yeah, these countries, they have to deal with corruption, what are you talking about? Like your own companies are paying other groups to destabilize like the country and to profit from it. And actually there's this term used a lot, like Banana Republic. This is a term from the early 1900s by a writer called Henry, I think, Henry, and it describes like these poor countries that their economy depend on the exportation of resources, and how other governments, richer countries, like influence and creates exactly this environment in which they can continue doing their practices, and they just install governments that are supporting them.
And I think also a pretty awesome example is Guatemala with Jacobo Arbenz, who was basically overthrown by the CIA in 1954.
In the 54.
Which was I think like he was democratically elected. He was not even a radical. He was a center leftist, but he nationalized. I mean, because also to put it in the clear, United Fruits owned 2/3 of all usable agricultural farm not farms but lands in all Guatemala. So he, like, as a conscious normal human being, he was against that, and he wanted to reappropriate or
expropriate, no?
Yeah. And just because of that, they were overthrown, and now basically Guatemala is back. Like that same party is now back in power, and they brought him back. There is a very interesting interview in the Intercept of him, like the president, talking about the coup and the impact of it, and how how much Guatemala suffered, and it's a super interesting exchange because you could hear a person that literally was overthrown by the empire talking about it.
This is insane. And it reminds me like this quote from Chico Mendes, an activist in Brazil that got killed actually, and he says, "Ecology without social struggle is simple gardening."
Yeah.
You're just gardening.
Can you imagine that you get killed, like shot and killed, just because you are you're
defending trees?
And literally he's demonstrating. He's not doing violent action, or he's not training militia to fight against. He's literally just voicing out the fact that we shouldn't destroy the Amazons, and like you get shot. Like that. So when we talk about capitalistic interest, we literally talk about very mafioso attitude. Like it's not they're there to kill.
That's something interesting that people do not quite realize about. Have you maybe heard about the idea that our way of living and our economy will be collapsing in a few years? Collapse aware, sometimes they're called. I do not belong to this category, but I really understand the reasoning there. And what people often do not understand, when people say that the world will be really suffering soon from the whole sustainability crisis, that the main suffering will come from social unrest. So that will be the main reason, and it will be just accelerated by rising levels of the seas, for example, and the droughts. And you come from Tunis, right? So
it's one of the most impacted.
I've heard this theory also a bit about the Arab Spring coming partially from the season of droughts, and since many fields were taken for raps growing, it was basically more hunger also because of that, and it was kind of contributing to the feelings of social unrest, and this will just happen more and more. So I do believe, and there's a big kind of, it is maybe a big statement, but I do believe that the sustainable solutions should be found absolutely in combination with the social solutions. Otherwise it will just all go to
you're just like
gardening.
You're just gardening.
So, like regarding the Arab Spring theory, I'm not sure about it.
You touched some strings.
I'm not knowledgeable enough.
No, I'm not saying that it's not plausible. I'm saying that for like Tunisia, for example, is one of the most impacted countries. Like I'm talking today, statistically, like the alarm that is happening. We're living through a drought. For some time, like for years now, the level of what's the sud where do you stock the water, like the not the word, but basically when the rain happened, like you have like those huge
stored,
the water storage, rain storage were below, I think 12% below critical level, and it never happened in Tunisia since independence. Since ever, like it never happened. It's the first time in recorded history for Tunisians. So environmentally, we're very, very endangered. And there are nowadays we talk about climate refugees. It's not a myth. It's not a lie. It's not a joke. It's existing. Like we have places that were completely destroyed. But just to talk about the at least what happened in Tunisia, because the Arab Spring is a complicated, long topic that encompasses multiple people, nations, and so on. It's not the same everywhere. But in Tunisia, for me, I consider it as a bourgeois uprising that is not necessary. It has nothing to do with the people's demand or people's necessities at that time, or the global image. It doesn't really reflect what was happening on the proletarian.
And now that you mentioned, like actually I had like this friend, and she was doing like an internship in the UN about like what is going to happen with the people of these islands that are going to disappear in 20-30 years. Where are they going to move these people? So it's like it's going to happen
with the immigration discourse narrative in our minds.
Exactly. They know these islands are going to disappear. It's like, shit, what do we do with these people? And they are already taking measures 30 years before it happens, because they know it's going to happen. Nobody's going to stop this. And yeah, just to close like this topic, because it sounds like, okay, but the United Fruit Company, like these evil guys, like, but we are the goodies. No, we are the goodies, obviously. And I was talking to this girl, and she told me like, well, like a big problem is that other countries, less developed countries, they don't know how to treat the waste. And I was like,
bad people, bad.
I did something like, I did my ear like this, like, oh, what again? And she's like, yeah, I was in Thailand, and in Thailand everyone was using like plastic bags.
Disgusting.
Like, oh my god, disgusting. They were drinking with straws. I was like, oh my god, no, it's bad. Obviously it's bad, like a plastic bag. I'm not going to deny that. But I told her, do you know that Germany is the world largest exporter of garbage in the world of waste? That means that Germany pays other countries to take care of their garbage, of their waste. And the European Union... Like,
you know why?
Yeah.
Because of the EU rules.
Yeah, exactly. I will just give some like numbers just to have an idea. Germany exported last year 16.3 million tons of waste, and the European Union 32 million tons of waste in 2022. That means they just pay other countries.
Yeah.
This is and this is called waste colonialism.
Yeah.
This is colonialism. If you don't know where your waste comes from, then don't.
So in Tunisia, we had this huge scandal that happened where there were some contracts, some alignments, governmental alignments that happened without the knowledge of the people. And there were containers discovered in the port full of medical waste. So not even, and also I think it was COVID period, if I'm not wrong. But it's not only waste; it's medical waste. It's like and
infectious shit you can never imagine.
Yeah. And at that time, Italy was going ballistic against Tunisia because the number of illegal, I never call them illegal, but no, the number of undocumented, they call them illegal, that's why I'm repeating that, but undocumented.
Because this is also an audio, you have to say like quote.
I can do it. No, I can do it. What up, people? So they were going ballistic because the number of undocumented people rose so much, and then we discovered that they're throwing their shit in our country, like literally.
I'm just talking about trash. I was actually working on projects supporting plastic alternatives and reuse model in Southeast Asia, and it was very interesting that that's true. There was so much trash coming from Western countries. It used to come to China first, and there are lots of trash billionaires in China right now. Well, I think the richest woman in China used to be, at least, she made her
wealth
fortune on this, on basically dealing with trash. But at one point, China was like, you know what, this is too much.
We have our own trash. We're 2 billion.
Don't want this anymore. And so it started coming to other countries, for example, Philippines. And what happens often that this trash comes to the islands, and their companies basically are paid to deal with it. And they say, well, we have factory there to like kind of sort it out, but in fact they do not have a factory, and they just burn it.
Yeah.
And there are people who are living nearby. It's
and it becomes unlivable. Yeah,
it's very bad for your health, right?
Remember
and so this type of situations, but in these situations, you're like, okay, who's guilty? People really like to find like a scapegoat. Who is guilty? And then some say, well, who's guilty are those consumers. They shouldn't use this plastic. Others say, no, that's companies. Others say, no, that's the governments. And so everyone is looking for a scapegoat somehow. And and whatever.
But I think finding a scapegoat is not. It's fun. Like, it's definitely.
It's fun,
definitely. We should always find a scapegoat.
It can be a game, like a board game. Find a scapegoat.
Find a scapegoat for this case.
For everything, for every social topic.
Dude, we have to do a portion on the podcast, but find the scapegoat.
Yes, absolutely. But I also think that's the geniality of capitalism is like to move the guilt to the individual.
Yeah.
You know, like 40% of the waste is made by 1% of the population, by the richest, you know, and just like the US.
No, not the waste. The
CO
emissions.
Sorry. The footprint. That's totally true. Europe contributes like to 15%, like the G20. That means like the 20th
biggest GDP.
Exactly. Countries in the world, they produce 81% of the CO2 emissions, and it's almost like 200 countries in the world.
And that's now, I think, one of the most challenging questions when you talk about economical exchange and word future treaties that we will have to talk about, because Europeans have been modern and developed and beautiful and amazing for the last 100 years or so, and everyone now talk about deindustrialization. Go to Mali or to Tunisia or to Libya and try to talk about deindustrialization. They were like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like we're struggling. We have electricity. So like in Lebanon before the war, they had 7 hours of electricity, I think, per day. So we live in such a diametrically opposed realities, and white people come to us or to the global south in general and try to tell us how we should all of us figure out the shit that they created themselves.
No, I think that all the people in Mali should buy an electric car. Like, what are you talking about?
What are your thoughts about? There are some suggestions that say like, well, the countries that have certain resources, like Brazil with the rainforest, you know, and a few other countries who have, you know, who can actually positively contribute to the environment, they should be paid by others.
I agree.
More or less. That's kind of a
to keep the rainforest.
Yes, for example.
Yeah.
So basically balancing it out so that the situation doesn't happen like, oh well, we have produced all this CO2 and fucked up the planet, and now you guys, I need to be on par with us, but without the advantages of getting the economy developed already. So this can balance it out, but
I think like you're what you mentioned is extremely important, knowing or taking into consideration that Americans destroyed their rainforest. So why do they get to that? It's not that I'm like pushing for destroying the forest, but how do you as an empire destroy all your like literally your rainforest? You completely take up, like you genocide the native people, whatever, like you completely destroy the ecosystem that is there, and now come and try to give lectures to whatever who is like I'm not a Bolsonaro supporter, obviously. Like I'm definitely against the deforestation in Brazil, but consideration should be taken, and I think compensation in general should be taken for people, because at the end, who are trying to profit from it, or even it's not only like big companies. Like we talk about farmers or meat producers, and so some of them are small. Like I've watched few documentaries. You see there are a lot of practices. It's not the main practice that will destroy the ecosystem, but it's part of it. And if you think of Madagascar, where we lost, I think 50% of the biodiversity that was there.
I think it's more. I think also the forest there.
Yeah. But the lapse of time is so small, and that could have been definitely avoided if other support, if other alternative were.
So you think it's fair, but the challenge that I see is very political. So basically, people are suggested, okay, you need to pay back to these countries, right? In some way, so you need to balance it out. But people who are paying, they're not the ones who kind of benefited from it, or they at least don't feel this way. If you ask an let's say 25-year-old German who's right now struggling with rising prices and everything, and you tell them, well, you need to pay to Brazil with the rainforest, they'll be like, what about no?
But what about don't pay money, if that money doesn't go to the military?
I think I think they definitely should pay, especially the 25-year-old who voted.
Hard to sell it to them though.
Because they voted for the Greens. You know, what's her name? The insane lady? No.
No, but at the end, like as Dash puts it, like it's like the deforestation of the forest in Brazil. It's not a problem of Brazil. It's only, you know, like we are all part of that deforestation. Like we are all putting that pressure.
Yeah, but that's an alien concept for post-capitalistic societies where individualism is innate. Like they think that that's how everything works. There is no other thing. We can think as collectivities.
Yeah, and now also nationalism is on the rise. What I have heard in the media narratives a lot was something like this: "This is our country. This is our forest." Like nobody kind of thinks that just a chance that you were born in this country with this jungle or this beautiful forest and woods or whatever else, and then they feel like they somehow like also connect their pride, their national pride sometimes
on the resources.
To that. Yeah, exactly. Or like someone else would say like, oh, we have oil, we're so rich with oil, but like who exactly?
Yeah, who decided? Yeah, absolutely.
Who's actually using these resources? Yeah, very different question.
The air that we use, like, isn't that a resource?
Yeah. And I feel it can be lead actually to more nationalism that can be quite poisonous. It can be quite hard actually then to make deals and balance it out, because people are so their identity gets connected to the ownership of the forest that they don't own and they don't use.
It reminded me, like I read this a long time ago, like when the US started like expanding and taking over all the native Indians territories. The government tried to buy from I think it was from what they called like the Redskins, is not the name obviously. But what
sure.
they exactly.
You're good.
Anyway, the thing is that they tried to buy the piece of land, and there's this beautiful letter, like maybe we can put it like on the comments on the sources. But the chief of the native Indians, he answers, I don't understand what you are talking about. It's like, how can I sell you? And it's beautiful, reading like the sound of a river, like the smell of the flowers in spring. Like they didn't have like this conception of property.
They didn't commodify yet everything.
Like, how can I tell you this is not mine, but this is the land of the ancestors, of the animals, of everything. And it's really important at that point.
There is this idea that a certain type of value system has kind of won. Do you know about the moral foundations theory? Have you heard about it? Very interesting. It's about kind of innate value system in all humans, and there are like a few theories. Some of them are, for example, loyalty or fairness, stuff like that.
That triggers.
I will not deep dive into it, but it's quite interesting that there is quite a big group that wants to add to this innate list of values, of moral values of humans, feeling of ownership.
Yeah, of course.
And some other people are intensely against it. So
like religious capitalism, obviously, yeah.
Yes, and some are saying like, no, it is literally human condition, you know. And others saying it's your condition.
And that's
this narrative of property
is innate, and also like that fatalism, that Jusco Buddhism, in the sense that there is no other alternative. There's only capitalism. There's only property. There's only
history was built to come to capitalism.
not this, because they are going up.
So you would say that's not an innate moral.
I am as a communist myself. Sure.
I would say it's part of the narrative. Like first of all, there's no human nature. Like, this is the human nature. What are you talking? Like, what's human nature? You know, like it's a really dangerous way of putting it. Something,
the stars,
like the stars. I don't know. Anyway, I think we should go to the next topic and probably do a pause after it, because by the way, this podcast probably like takes a long time, so thank you for being here.
I enjoy it so much.
Yeah. There's no limit of time here. We just talk until we say like, guys, I'm drunk. Okay. I can't.
If that's the focal point, then we can rewind.
We will do. Sure. So let's present your topic, and then we do a pause, and then we talk about like the book. Yeah. Okay.
I agree. So, it's not actually my topic. It's something something that I stumbled upon. But if I tell you that there is one person, and because I mean, I'm definitely not. I definitely abhor and hate a lot American centralism, Americentrism, and the equivalence of Eurocentrism. Like thinking
Thank you for clarifying.
Explaining to people. You know, Hussein-splaining. Mansplaining.
Thank you. Okay.
But whether we like it or not, to understand our reality or the reality of where we live in, our economical reality, even the intellectual one, etc., we have to go by America or by the US more specifically, because people hate the term America. Sorry, Mario.
Yeah. I also come from America.
You have to at least abide by certain American rules in the way how you deal with your economy, the way how you deal with your social structure, life, institution, etc. Because if not, then you're either Cuba or Venezuela or Iran or Vietnam at a certain time, or any other any previous victim of the US. And so I always find myself going back to American topics, American public space things. And if I tell you that there is a person that is a prominent lawyer, a Harvard-educated lawyer, that was a lobbyist for a tobacco cartel, that literally used psychoanalysis methods to transform, not himself but indirectly, but he was part of the scheme, to transform American society and push tobacco on women, that in the 50s was not a thing because women didn't smoke at that time because of social barriers, so broke those type of barriers. That was an informer for the FBI to tell, like what's the bureau de there is this office of all lawyers, and like this institution based, I don't know the name, but he was informing on his commie
investigation bureau.
No, I'm not talking about the FBI. I'm talking about, like, you know, for all lawyers there's this community, like for doctors, for example, you have the chamber exactly, chamber of lawyers. So he was informing, he was the president of the chamber, and he was informing on his commie colleagues to the FBI in the McCarthy area. That he like, so literally mass murder, snitch, a
bad guy.
A bad guy. Like literally. And this guy, where he ends up, he ends up being in the, what is it called, the court,
the Chamber of Commerce.
No.
Like Supreme Court.
He ends up being one of the Supreme Court judges. So I found this basically memorandum and podcast, and later on more information and so on. And here we're talking about the Powell Memorandum, and this memorandum is basically what sort of legalized corruption in the US.
And I think it's important to say this, like, normally when we say like that system wants you to believe this, like people like, okay, come on, that's like like really paranoid. There's no system trying to make me think, like, guys,
this
you
memo?
will see, like this memo, this is what we're talking about. Like,
so what is memorandum about?
Like, you want to go through it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can read you some snips of it, but we will put it for sure in the sources of
exactly. Like, just like to wrap, and then you can explain it. It's like this memo he wrote this to the Chamber of Commerce of the US to tell them
educational part. So the education cell
of the Chamber of Commerce, and it's like different points. making recommendations on how to maintain the status quo of American society. And when you think of American society, it's like, no, maybe it was just no.
Corporate.
Everything is planned, and you will see why. And this is not a conspiracy theory. You can see it. Like, it's like completely.
It's available. It's accessible.
Yeah. So, but basically, memorandum where he suggested certain steps.
Yeah.
So the status quo is.
So he starts by
aligns. So the status quo aligns to American capitalism.
Yeah. So when he says status quo, we're talking about profit. We're talking about the influence and the impact of businesses and pro-business lobbies, cells, ideologists, whatever. How to give more accessibility, more power. How to pump as much possible money into the system. How to be able to deregulate all the institutions. How to be able to go literally the status quo now in the US, where you don't have a CEO that can go to prison. Yeah. Literally the memorandum worked out at the end. So nowadays you go through you get caught bribing someone or destroying the environment, or what happened in East Palestine, for example, with the train that collapsed and completely fucking spilled like oil everywhere. I think, if I'm not wrong. What happens? You pay a fine. So
I don't quite understand what is conspiracy about it.
Because I'll tell you why.
The fact that there are like basically this lobby has been existing for a while.
But that's the thing. It didn't. That's the thing. Like people think of the US and of the political system and the way how lobby work as if it was an indefinite thing since ever. It's not. It was not. So I mean, I don't know exactly who. Because there was a cap before. There was a cap before, and there were anonymity. There were non-anonymity. But the political American U.S. system went through a lot of FICA and a lot of different reforms and counter reforms and so on to get to today's. Like there is a ruling, 2009 ruling, that is now a very famous doctrine that is called money is. Money is speech. So this is a doctrine that literally it literally gave access. So there is a judicial decision in 1886. The court basically so it's a Supreme Court case, Santa Clara County versus South Pacific Railroad, and the court reported in the summary of the case. It included basically a statement suggesting that the Supreme Court recognized corporation as persons.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, for purposes of the 14th Amendment civil rights. So a ruling in 1886 has been used to expand upon it and grant corporation in 2010, so 13 years ago, and in a different case, the Citizen United versus Federal Election Commission. So basically, this is a group that wanted to fund without telling the person that is representing. So it allowed corporations to spend unlimited money on political campaigns, citing their First Amendment right. So the right freedom of speech, the right to express. So this court in 2010, based on this ruling in 1886, they concluded that you can't put a cap on money. Sorry, I got too excited.
You can't put a cap because that's freedom of speech.
That's freedom of speech. So money is speech.
Money is freedom of speech. Yeah. You can pay.
And this is 2010. It's not a billion years ago.
So what you're afraid of is that this will go into marketing.
Not marketing. I'm afraid of that one person that has not one person that like nowadays with this ruling. We have one super class that is called billionaires that with their money they can do whatever they want with their freedom of speech.
Yeah.
And we have the rest of the 300 million that can't put millions of money to change this law or to do this or to do that are a subclass.
I will tell you something beautiful. In the US, in the last 30 years, there has been no candidate that has won being not the one with most funds.
Yeah.
Like if that doesn't tell you that money is winning in the last 30 years, no candidate has won without being
money.
the one
Yeah.
with more funds in their
Yeah.
campaign. Like that's it.
But I mean, it's like the whole system is also a joke in the
It's
US, in the sense that like I come to you and I tell you, hey, there is these two people and choose between them after we did out. But let's go, like just to go back to the
Let's go to the memo.
Yeah,
Let's go
to the memo. I just wanna read you a little bit the synopsises, maybe few things. So he basically talk about a dimension of an attack. He considers that there is a huge attack on the American system and the American values, and so he identifies it. He says that he says what concerns us is quite new in the history of America. We are not dealing with episodic or isolated attacks from a relatively few extremists or even from the minority socialist cadre. Rather, the assault on the enterprise system is broadly based on consistently pursued. It is gaining momentum and converts. So he talks about converting literally in mass people to.
Who is he talking about? Who are those?
Yeah, I can tell you who are they. So he says that they are the communist, new leftist, and other revolutionary would destroy the entire system, both political and economical. So this is how he identifies. So source of the attack.
I should say, like, I see from what you told about him, he's a true believer.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's a true ideological believer. He hates communists.
Yeah. I mean, he was informing on them to this. Yeah.
But like, you know, I think, yes, that's very, very interesting.
Yeah.
And let me like quote like something like in one moment he says that the most disquieting voices joining this chorus of criticism,
Neither.
they came from perfectly respectable elements of society. So he's amazed that this criticism is coming from these elements of society. For example, the college campus, the pulpit, the media, the intellectual and the literary journals, the art and science and from politicians. So he's amazed that people that read are against of the system. Practically, like he doesn't see like why these people that are actually intelligent are against our system. I don't understand.
No, and he's bothered by that fact. He says, yet those often are the most articulate, the most vocal, the most prolific in their writing and speaking. So that's for him the issue. The issue is that they're too prolific to be for that
They
shit.
know too much.
Yeah, and
But do you understand why? Like, I can really understand his way of thinking. He believes that the system works. It has worked for us. It has made us rich and powerful and successful. And like, why are they talking against it? Sure, it has some side effects, but
so
we're strong.
Actually,
I think that's how
he names who is it.
but he asks himself like it's a paradox why the system like the media, the politicians tolerates not just reproducing, why it tolerates it. And like he's talking about we should use mass media to suppress these voices, and he talks about like the he says the chamber should consider establishing a staff of highly qualified scholars in social sciences who do believe in the system. And they should evaluate social science textbooks, especially in economics, political science, and sociology. So practically he's saying like we should be the ones who put the leaders of the universities, and the universities should only teach what we want them to teach, no?
So I think one of the most iconic passages. So because I mean the whole memorandum is basically communist manifesto for corporates. Yeah, like U.S. corporation unite, like literally in that sense. He's talking about regulation institution to be smeared, about U.S. enterprise having like he literally says have little to no power on influences and decision making. And this is the passage that literally blew my mind. He says, this is literal. Politicians reflect what they believe to be majority views of their constituents. It is thus evident that most politicians are making the judgment that the public has little sympathy for the businessman and his or his viewpoints. We have to enlighten public thinking. So for him, it's disgusting that the politician reflects what they believe to be majority views of their constituents. Like literally how things should be. Like normally you're elected by people to represent their views. Like that's how
they don't represent.
Yeah, for him, like this is atrocious for him. Like for him, us as enterprises and companies, how can we control things if you want the others to?
And like just to summarize, like there's this part he says like the threat to the enterprise system is not merely a matter of economics. It is also a threat to the individual freedom. I love the I love the gringos, dude. Oh my god!
I like him.
It's freedom. Like
will you punch me?
You're attempting
I'm not surprised.
against my freedom of exploiting people.
I like
what
him.
the fuck?
I like him, but not because of like I do not agree with him, but I respect his dedication.
Yeah. No,
His
definitely.
whole life, he believes in this so bad.
I mean,
And I find it very interesting that he's like, well, I believe in this, so it's correct, okay? So
he did not.
Let's fight for it, guys. So he will probably understand you guys also.
Absolutely.
You're like believing in your stuff. And
We
he's
would be
like,
frenemies
fight
for sure.
it. Exactly.
For sure. And also like he doesn't only believe. He wrote
Enemies to
33.
lovers, no?
He wrote he died. He died though.
Hate to love, you know.
Oh.
Yeah. The line is thin.
The line is in between.
But he wrote 33 pages for that shit, for his dedication, and honestly, he kind of succeeded. Like that's the thing. He made his dream came true. Like if he would be living now, I think he would be
super
definitely
happy.
satisfied.
Would be happy, yeah?
But just for like because you said like what was the turning point for him? What made him feel like where there was an attack?
Mm-hmm.
So. What made him feel is definitely the 70s because that's when he wrote the memo.
Yeah.
But in the 70s, Nixon was in power. And Nixon, while being the conservative asshole person that he is, and the extremely pro-business person and so on, in his era, FICA, which was election regulation laws that passed through Nixon. It definitely it's not him who passed it. He was pressured to pass it. But also afterwards, Watergate happened. You know the whole shit. But they passed laws that prohibit anyone to donate to campaigns above $100 and be anonymous. So you have to keep before FICA in 70.
You could be anonymous.
You could literally pump as much money as you want, and no one knows who you are or what company you are or whatever. So like complete fucking chaos, literally. So for him, Nixon passing that law was a ring bell. And the second thing is Ralph Nader, who in his memo he says perhaps the single most effective antagonist of American business, Ralph Nader. He blames the media that made him, and he calls him a legend in his own time and an idol of millions of Americans. And let me tell you who's this person because I googled him. So this guy is a son of immigrants. He's Lebanese, as always, as all the bad people are.
Also pretty.
Yeah.
Also pretty. Hot people.
Yeah. Hot bad people.
Hot bad people. The worst combination.
Yeah. So this guy, what he did, he wrote a book called Unsafe at Any Speed, where he exposed the American automotive industry for being generally unsafe. And he specifically mentioned General Motors and listed hundreds of lawsuits against General Motors that were pending at that time, like lobbying, obviously, letting the lawsuit froze. And so what happened? General Motors then attempted to discredit him, so they tapped his phone. They hired prostitutes to blackmail him, and when it didn't work, and this, by the way, like what I'm saying, this is General Motors CEO admitting it in an inquiry convened by Senator Abi Ribikov, I think.
I'm so sure General Motors executives right now are just so envious of how fun it used to be.
Yeah, to be a militant prostitute.
We used to tap
We
their phones.
used to hang out with prostitutes and engage them into blackmailing, and now what?
Yeah.
Meetings, PowerPoint.
These woke people.
So after that, like, so basically because of this inquiry and everything, they passed laws to abide automotive companies for safety rulings and so on. After that, he hired a bunch of students. He called them Nader Raiders, to look into the FTC, so the Federal Trade Commission, which is supposedly an agency that regulates how company, like, to make sure that there is no mergers, there's no monopolies, like antitrust law, basically. And he, like, the report from him and his colleagues were, like, they ended up with a report showcasing that it was extremely inefficient and very passive organism, and like briberies and all that shit. And so a whole restructure of the FTC happened. He's an environmentalist, anti-war defendant.
So he's a good person.
So literally a militant. So and this guy, because of the little success that he was having in media and so on, for him, like, that was unbearable, and he had to write this defining memoir.
While defending tobacco companies.
While being a mass murderer.
Exactly.
While killing like millions of people later on.
Anyway.
So yeah, I want to finish by saying I encourage, and I will put this on the sources, of course, but I encourage everyone to go through the memo. It's 33 pages, but I'm gonna put my highlights so that you can jump. But because it's important to read and to see how a conspiracy looks like.
I don't understand why do you think it's a conspiracy?
I'm gonna tell you why. Because and that's why because when he puts when he qualifies how the situation is according to him in the US, he doesn't stop there. He starts by saying what we as pro-business companies should do. And how we should infiltrate campuses, how we should pay media publicities to pressure all the anti-business discourse, how we should do movies, how we should be part of the educational reforms and change the programs and migrate people towards liking the system and liking business, how we should be part of all that, how the chambers, the funds of the chambers should rise, how the salary should be much higher, how we should have a media consultant and the PR consultant. Like, he's basically writing a blueprint.
He's building the propaganda.
Yeah, what you see now and what you see in Project 2025 in Trump and the pro-radical, the radical right-wing American, it's basically walking on based on that memorandum, and also like going one step ahead, because now there is probably another memorandum.
Yeah,
I mean,
no, and at the end, I think that what I think is that this is, in a sense, quote unquote, normal in any country that it's building propaganda to maintain their system. But like this double moral, no, when they teach you like, oh my god, the DDR, like the Soviet Union, they were so propagandistic, and it's like, dude, what were you doing? It's like, are you doing the same shit but with your narrative, you know?
That's interesting, because for me that doesn't sound like as conspiracy at all. For me, it's kind of a known fact. Have you ever watched a Hollywood movie? Sorry, they have
for you, yes, but
and like, I should say that it doesn't surprise me that people have ideologies, and then they try to push them through, and some of this works out, and that's actually the direction where whole nations and countries go. I was like, okay, so sorry. So where's the conspiracy?
But what shocks me?
A lot of people that live into the narrative, they don't know it's a narrative.
And there's a lot of push also has been for a while, and it's this ideological push also, like, okay, look, consumerism is good, that's how we support our economies, so we should support all of those movements. And before that we were discussing environment stuff, right? And there's this whole like, oh well, but all those people, they just want to buy plastic. Cannot we, like, then we have to give it to them? They're just like, oh, this demand. We're just poor suppliers. We're just under tyranny of the consumer. And in reality, of course, there's lots of marketing happening, and it's like that consumerism is good. And that's what I see as a very much of a norm right now. And it has been developed for decades, definitely. And I see right now there's quite a crisis also of the system because of the ecological crisis.
Absolutely.
We're just faced with the consequences. Because if there wouldn't be ecological crisis to that, then there wouldn't be maybe as much of a like obvious issue. as it is right now. So I do feel these two topics are very connected, to be honest.
They are definitely connected. But what I disagree with you is that, I mean, honestly, my ideologies I've never seen the day of light. Like, I mean, my meta narratives and my grand stories, they always fail. So I am always impressed to see something like a memo with the reality of, because I also got really into the 70s as a period and wanted to see, and the US didn't look like that at that time. And when you see the US now, it literally, that's why I'm saying it's a blueprint for nowadays reality. You see that what he theorized, what he pushed, what he wanted, literally sort of happened majority, like meistens.
You would so be frenemies.
Yeah, I mean, I respect him
like,
a lot.
Wow.
This is that he made it happen.
He wanted this to happen, and it did happen.
It's Machiavellic.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, so this little introduction took us, I don't have
A little introduction. Just a little one.
So I think it's time to make a pause
And get to the real shit.
Get to the real shit. The real shit is getting to.
It's getting good.
It's getting good. Okay, ciao, guys.